The Galactic Empire ruled space through order and fear. Its banners floated above thousands of worlds, each one marked as owned, taxed, and watched. Most species obeyed because resistance meant erasure. The Empire did not hide its methods. It believed fear worked best when seen on the edge of imperial space. A massive orbital station drifted like a cold crown. It was called the Crown Exchange. Here, resources were traded, territories were negotiated, and sometimes lives were sold. This time, the Empire prepared something different. Something symbolic. 4 women generals stood at the center of the station's main chamber. They were not chained, but gravity fields locked them in place. Each wore the uniform of a fallen resistance fleet. They had led wars against the Empire and lost. Now they were trophies. The Empire called it an auction. Not for labor, not for ransom, but for humiliation. The message was clear. Even leaders could be owned. The event was broadcast across known space. Every member species was forced to carry the signal. Refusal meant sanctions or worse. The Empire wanted witnesses. On Earth. The broadcast cut into normal transmissions without warning. Alex Brown sat in a quiet operations room in New Denver. He worked as a deep space analyst. His job was usually boring. Signals, trade routes, politics. He was halfway through a report when the screen changed. The room filled with alien light. He leaned forward, confused. Beside him, Nina Fox frowned. She adjusted her headset, trying to cut the feed, but it would not stop. "What is this?" she asked. Alex did not answer. The translator software was already working. Imperial symbols filled the screen. A tall alien official spoke with calm pride. "Today," the voice said, "the Empire reminds the galaxy of its mercy." The camera moved. 4 figures stood in silence. Nina felt her chest tighten. "Are those prisoners?" Alex swallowed. "They look like commanders." The translator confirmed it seconds later. The official named each one. Generals, fleet leaders, heroes to their people. The official explained the rules. Bidders would gain ownership rights. Not execution. Not freedom. Ownership. Around the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species looked away. Some watched in fear. Some rulers pretended not to care. The Empire counted on that. On Earth, reactions were different. Within minutes, emergency channels lit up. Leaders were called from sleep. Military officers gathered in secure rooms. Civilians shared clips across the network. Shocked and angry, Emma Ross stood in the Global Council chamber, staring at the projection. She had seen war. She had seen loss. But this felt different. "They are making an example," she said quietly. Paul Adams nodded. "They are saying no one is beyond being property." Someone asked the question no one wanted to answer. "Are humans next?" Silence followed. Humanity had stayed neutral since first contact. It traded carefully. It avoided alliances. It believed distance was safety. The Empire tolerated this because humans were useful and unpredictable. But the auction changed everything. On the screen, one of the generals lifted her head. Her face showed no fear, only anger held tightly in check. The camera zoomed in, trying to capture weakness. Instead, it captured defiance. Alex felt something break inside him. "Turn it off," Nina said softly. He shook his head. "We need to see." The Imperial official continued, describing how ownership would prevent future rebellions, how leadership would be discouraged, how order would be maintained. Words like order and peace were repeated often. On Earth, those words sounded hollow. Protests began within hours. Not violent ones, silent ones. People stood in streets with screens showing the frozen image of the 4 generals. No slogans were needed. Even those who feared war spoke out. teachers, workers, pilots, engineers. The message was simple. This was wrong. Late that day, another signal arrived. This one was not force dot. It came from an independent relay near the auction station. Someone had leaked internal Empire data. It showed similar plans for other captured leaders. The auction was not unique. It was a test. When Alex saw the files, his hands trembled. "They are normalizing it," he said. "This is policy." Nina looked at him. "Then neutrality means acceptance." Across Earth and its colonies, that thought took root. Emma Ross addressed the council again that night. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed fire. "Humanity does not claim moral perfection," she said. "But we know this. Leadership is not property. Dignity is not negotiable. Some feared the cost. Others feared extinction. But the choice had already been made in the hearts of the people. Far away. In the Crown Exchange, the auction clock began its final countdown. The Empire believed it was demonstrating control. It did not realize it had just united a species. Somewhere between the cold stars and the watching screens, the last war quietly becked broadcast of the auction still filled screens across human colonies. People watched in disbelief. The four generals, held like trophies, became a symbol of cruelty. The Planetary Council of Earth was called to meet in emergency. The leaders gathered in the council chamber, a large circular room filled with maps, holograms, and communications panels. The air was tense. Emma Ross, one of the council's senior members, stood at the center. She looked over the gathered leaders. "This is not just an attack on others," she said. "This is a statement about us, about every free being in the galaxy. They are saying leadership can be bought. Dignity can be sold. We cannot let that stand." Paul Adams, head of the human fleet, leaned forward. His voice was measured. "We must consider our options carefully. Direct intervention could trigger full-scale war. We have limited forces compared to the Empire. One wrong move and humanity itself could be attacked." A younger council member, Rachel Kim, spoke up. "We have satellites, fleets, and allies among other species. If we wait, it could be too late. They will normalize this behavior. Other leaders will be captured next. Do we really have a choice?" The debate went on for hours. Maps of Empire-controlled space rotated above their heads. Markers showed fleet positions, trade routes, and colonies. Intelligence analysts presented the leaked files from the auction station. These files detailed not only the four generals, but dozens of other leaders in waiting. It was a systematic plan. Finally, the council reached a decision. It would not be a small mission or a diplomatic protest. Humanity would act to prevent further injustice. Not for revenge, not for greed, but for principle. Leadership was sacred, and no species should be reduced to property. Emma and Paul prepared the official statement. The council agreed to mobilize the human fleet, not for conquest, but for rescue and enforcement. Intelligence officers began contacting sympathetic species in the Empire's orbit, seeking alliances. Humanity would act quickly, decisively, and with care. Meanwhile, across human colonies, news of the decision spread. Civilians, engineers, scientists, and soldiers all felt the weight of it. People like Alex Brown and Nina Fox, who had first seen the auction broadcast, volunteered for strategic roles. They coordinated data, planned routes, and provided analysis. Everyone knew the stakes. On the Empire's side, the auction continued. Alien bidders argued over the general's value. Each bid was not only a transaction, but a political statement. The Empire assumed humanity would stay neutral, as it always had. It underestimated human response, but humanity had already changed. Fleets began leaving orbital shipyards, moving toward the outer rim where the auction station was located. They traveled in formation, carefully avoiding patrols while maintaining speed. Human captains communicated in silence codes, ensuring the Empire would not detect the operation too soon. At the same time, diplomatic teams reached out to species that had been oppressed by the Empire. Messages were sent discreetly. Promises were made. If humans intervened, the Allies would support evacuation, provide intelligence, and avoid unnecessary casualties. It was a coalition formed not by force, but by shared desire for freedom. In the council chamber, Emma and Paul watched the fleet tracking screens. The first reports came in. Scout ships had detected movement around the auction station. Drones confirmed that the generals were still alive and that the Empire had not increased defenses yet. The timing was right. Human fleets would strike quickly, decisively, and carefully. "We are not attacking them for revenge," Emma reminded everyone. "We are stopping them from normalizing cruelty. This is about principle, about morality. It is not just about humans. It is about all free beings." On the station, the four generals sensed the tension. They could feel the subtle change in the Empire's calculations. While they could not communicate with each other, their instincts told them help was coming. Hope, faint but real, began to grow. Each one silently prepared for the first chance to resist. In human space, families, engineers, and young cadets watched transmissions, not fully understanding strategy, but understanding the message. Humanity had chosen to intervene. It was the first time in decades that such a decision had united the colonies. People discussed the Council's decision in kitchens, workshops, and classrooms. The idea that a species would act not for gain, but for justice, inspired confidence and pride. Even in the Empire's distant worlds, whispers began to spread. Some governors and commanders questioned the morality of the auction. Some feared the rising human determination. The Empire had always relied on fear, but now it faced an enemy that acted out of principle, not fear. It was a new and unpredictable force. Preparations for the rescue began in secret. The fleet studied the orbital station's design. Engineers proposed modifications to ships for stealth and rapid extraction. Commanders assigned units based on speed and experience. Soldiers and pilots underwent simulations. Every decision prioritized the survival of the generals, not destruction of the station. Human values guided the strategy. Emma and Paul met late into the night, reviewing the final plans. They knew the first strike could not fail. Failure would embolden the Empire and risk the lives of countless innocents. Success would signal to the galaxy that humans would not stand by when injustice occurred. Finally, a message was sent to the fleet. Coordinates, times, and signals confirmed. Everyone knew what they were fighting for. The generals were not just targets to rescue. They represented every act of leadership the Empire had tried to crush. Humanity was fighting for dignity, morality, and hope. As the fleet moved closer to the outer rim, excitement and tension coexisted. The Council monitored progress, but they also allowed the crews to prepare mentally. Unlike previous wars, this one was about something deeper. Not conquest, not territory. It was about justice, and humanity intended to prove it. And far away, on the cold metal decks of the Crown Exchange, the Empire remained unaware that the tides were changing. It had assumed humanity would remain distant and indifferent. It had not considered that humans might see wrong and act. It had not imagined a species driven by principle. The first steps of the last war had begun, and the galaxy itself would never be the same. The human fleet moved through the blackness of space like a shadow. No one spoke unnecessarily on the bridges of the ships. Pilots and engineers worked with quiet focus, aware that their mission was both delicate and dangerous. This was not a war of conquest. It was a war to save lives and restore dignity. Captain Mike Hayes commanded the fleet. His eyes scanned the holographic display of the outer rim sector. "All units maintain stealth formation," he said. "We strike only if necessary, and we prioritize extraction above all." His co-pilot, Amy Brooks, checked the fleet's sensors. "Scouts report minimal patrols near the auction station," she said. "It seems the Empire is confident that humans will not intervene." Mike nodded. "Then they are underestimating us." The Crown Exchange Station hung in orbit around a barren planet. It was enormous, shaped like a ringed fortress. Turrets and shields dotted its surface. But the humans had studied every angle. The engineering teams had modified small transport ships to slip through shields and gravity fields. Speed and coordination were their advantages. Alex Brown monitored transmissions from a command center on Earth. "All units are in position," he reported. "Signal jammers are ready. Extraction drones are online. General's location confirmed. Nina Fox checked the data feeds. Their gravity locks are strong, but if we can neutralize the energy nodes, we can free them in minutes." Back on the station, the four generals sensed unusual energy patterns. Though they could not see the fleet, their instincts told them something was coming. For the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves to hope. The humans did not attack all at once. First, stealth drones approached the station's outer perimeter. They avoided turrets, slipping past sensors like ghosts. Small bursts of precision lasers disabled specific shield emitters, enough to create safe corridors inside the station. Alarms blared. Alien soldiers ran in panic. The Empire had assumed no one would dare strike the auction station directly. They had assumed fear would protect their prize. "Intruders detected," one officer shouted. "Prepare defensive protocols." But the humans were already inside. Teams of pilots and engineers navigated narrow corridors using digital maps and drones. They avoided guards whenever possible. Where confrontation was unavoidable, they used non-lethal methods to incapacitate soldiers quickly. The first clash occurred near the general's holding area. Human strike teams approached the energy locks. Alien guards were armed, but human tactics were fast and coordinated. One by one, the guards were subdued. No lives were lost. The generals looked on in disbelief as the humans appeared in their holding chamber. Commander Lara West stepped forward first. She had led a resistance fleet on her home planet. Her voice was steady. "We are here to take you home," she said. The generals reacted cautiously. Years of imprisonment had taught them distrust, but hope was stronger than fear. One by one, they moved toward the humans. The gravity locks deactivated. Freedom, once distant and impossible, was finally within reach. Outside, the human fleet faced another challenge. Imperial reinforcements were on the way. Small fighter ships accelerated from the main Empire sectors, trying to intercept the human fleet. Mike and Amy coordinated a tactical response. "Evasive maneuvers," Mike ordered. "We will not let them slow us down." The fleet moved with precision, forming a protective ring around the extraction transports. Scouts provided real-time data, warning of enemy movements. Pilots performed daring maneuvers, weaving through asteroid fields and shielded debris to avoid enemy fire. Back in the station, the generals prepared to leave. Each had a specific role. Commander Lara West coordinated with human officers to disable remaining turrets. General Tessa Ryder, who specialized in strategy, identified weak points in the station's communications to prevent reinforcements. Together with the human team, they turned the station into a controlled zone rather than a trap. Alex Brown watched nervously as the extraction began. "They're moving the generals to the transport ships," he said. "Engines are online. Shields at 75%. Nina Fox added, "They'll have 20 minutes before the Empire's main fleet arrives. We need perfect timing." The first transports detached, slipping toward human fleet vessels waiting in orbit. Alien reinforcements finally arrived, but it was too late. Human ships blocked approaches, using coordinated formations to hold them off. Precision fire disabled engines without destroying ships. No lives were taken unnecessarily. On board the lead transport, Commander Lara West and Mike Hayes communicated over secure channels. "We're clear," she said, relief in her voice. "Generals are safe." "Hold formation," Mike responded. "We're not out of danger yet. Keep moving to the jump point." The generals looked at the human crew. They saw competence, courage, and care. It was not only a military mission, it was proof that humanity fought for principle, not greed. Trust grew quickly, built in the fire of shared purpose. The escape through the jump point was tense. Sensors showed Imperial ships attempting to close in, but human navigation was flawless. One by one, the fleet passed through the jump gates into safe territory. Once they emerged, cheers broke out among the crews. No one had been lost. The 4 generals were alive. The auction station, once a symbol of cruelty, had been neutralized. Emma Ross and Paul Adams watched the final data feeds. They allowed themselves brief smiles. The first strike was a success. Humanity had intervened decisively and morally. Alex and Nina shared a quiet moment in the command center. "We did it," Nina whispered. "We actually did it." Alex nodded, though his voice was heavy with emotion. "It's just the beginning. The Empire will respond." Indeed, in the distance, the Empire was already regrouping. Their pride had been wounded. They would not forget the humans' intervention. But for the first time, fear worked against them. The galaxy now knew that one species could act not just for survival, but for justice. The 4 generals, once prisoners and symbols of oppression, were now alive, free, and allies. They began immediate planning with human commanders to prepare for the Empire's likely retaliation. Intelligence, strategy, and hope combined. Humanity had acted not for conquest, not for revenge, but for principle. In the cold blackness of space, this first strike became the spark of a war, unlike any the galaxy had seen, a war for freedom, dignity, and justice. The auction may have begun the conflict, but humanity would define its course. The Empire had been humiliated. The auction station, its symbol of control, had been breached. The 4 generals were free, and humanity had proven it could act decisively. The Empire's leaders were furious. They called emergency councils, sending orders across sectors to regroup, strengthen defenses, and punish any species that dared to ally with humans. Fear, once their greatest weapon, had begun to fail. On Earth, the Council monitored the Empire's movements. Emma Ross and Paul Adams sat in the control chamber, reviewing fleet reports. Fleets of alien ships were moving toward the outer rim, but human scouts reported signs of hesitation among some Imperial commanders. Many feared another human strike. Rumors of alliances forming against the Empire spread quickly. Captain Mike Hayes addressed his fleet. "We must stay prepared," he said. "The Empire will retaliate. Our goal is not to destroy, but to protect. Every decision we make must minimize harm to civilians while disabling enemy attacks." His co-pilot, Amy Brooks, checked the latest reconnaissance data. "Enemy formations are disorganized," she said. "Many are questioning orders. We might be able to turn this to our advantage." Meanwhile, the 4 generals began working closely with human leaders. Commander Lara West, General Tessa Ryder, Admiral Nina Solis, and Colonel Juno King shared their knowledge of the Empire's fleets, communication systems, and weak points. Humanity had intelligence before, but now they had insight. The combination was powerful. Alex Brown analyzed Imperial communication networks. "They are trying to reorganize," he said. "But we are intercepting signals. Many units are refusing orders, some are even defecting. Our timing is critical." The first major battle took place near a strategic trade hub controlled by the Empire. Humans and defecting forces coordinated to disable orbital defenses. Small teams of engineers boarded the station under heavy cover, while human fighters engaged Imperial ships to prevent reinforcements. Amy Brooks piloted her ship through a narrow asteroid field, dodging enemy fire. She smiled briefly when she saw a group of Imperial fighters surrender instead of engaging. Humanity's reputation had grown faster than anyone expected. Inside the command center of the hub, the Empire's officers argued. Some wanted to fight to the last ship. Others wanted to retreat. Internal divisions weakened their response. The humans exploited this, disabling critical systems without destroying the station. Civilian areas remained untouched. Emma Ross addressed the Council via hologram. This is proof that strategy and principle are stronger than fear. We fight to free, not to conquer. Every life we protect strengthens our cause. The war continued to spread. As humanity and allied forces liberated one system after another, more species began to resist the Empire openly. Each victory inspired new hope. The Empire tried to use propaganda, but it was ineffective. The message of human intervention, courage, and respect for life resonated across the galaxy. General Tessa Ryder and her fellow generals trained human officers in Imperial tactics. They shared strategies to dismantle command networks, redirect patrols, and avoid civilian casualties. Combined, human and former Imperial forces became highly adaptable and ethical. Army. Captain Mike Hayes led several daring missions to intercept supply lines. Every mission focused on limiting destruction. Alien populations were spared. Imperial soldiers were captured when possible. These careful operations strengthened humanity's moral reputation, making more species willing to join their side. Back on Earth, Alex Brown and Nina Fox coordinated data, analyzing every strike, every movement. They predicted enemy responses, calculated odds, and suggested actions. Humans had moved from passive observers to decisive actors. The galaxy watched. In one crucial encounter, the human fleet blocked the Empire's attempt to retake a captured system. Human and allied ships formed a protective ring around civilian areas. Using precision strikes, they forced Imperial ships to withdraw without major losses. The victory was both tactical and symbolic. The 4 generals participated directly in the operations. Commander Lara West led a boarding team that seized the Empire's communication hub on a critical planet. Admiral Nina Salas coordinated fleet maneuvers that prevented enemy escape. Colonel Juno King trained local resistance forces, turning captured areas into strongholds. General Tessa Ryder advised on intelligence, predicting Imperial counterattacks. As the Empire faced repeated defeats, internal dissent grew. Governors who had once followed orders without question began questioning their leadership. Some offered to surrender in exchange for safe passage. The Empire's once solid control began to crumble. On human ships, morale was high. Soldiers and pilots saw that their actions protected lives, not just territory. They felt pride in the difference between their strategy and the Empire's cruelty. Hope spread across the fleet like wildfire. Emma Ross addressed the Council once more. "We are not just fighting a war," she said. "We are proving that dignity and morality matter in this galaxy. Every action we take shapes the future. Every life we save is a victory." The Empire, stubborn and vengeful, launched counterattacks, but they were disorganized. Humanity anticipated movements, used alliances, and continued to minimize casualties. The war became less about destruction and more about ending oppression. Every victory showed that the Empire's power could be broken without genocide. By the end of the first year, human-led forces controlled multiple sectors previously under Imperial rule. Liberated systems began forming councils and self-governing bodies. Former imperial subjects joined the coalition, providing intelligence, manpower, and resources. The war had transformed from a mission to rescue 4 generals into a campaign for freedom across the galaxy. The 4 generals became icons of the human-led coalition. Their presence inspired allies and demoralized the Empire. Humans had not only rescued them, but had empowered them to lead again. Their knowledge, courage, and ethics guided the coalition in every operation. In the council chambers on Earth, leaders understood that the war was far from over, but they had changed the balance of power. Humanity had acted decisively, morally, and effectively. The Empire could no longer rely solely on fear. Resistance had spread, and hope had grown. The first strikes had shown the galaxy a new truth. Principles, courage, and careful strategy could challenge even the mightiest empire. The war had begun as a mission to save 4 generals, but it was evolving into a movement to reshape the entire galaxy. Human values, justice, restraint, and dignity had become the standard, not just for humans, but for every liberated world. And in the distance, the Empire prepared its next moves, unaware that its rigid ideology and reliance on fear were crumbling. The galaxy would never be the same again, and humanity had become the spark that could ignite lasting change. Human-led coalition had grown stronger with each victory. Liberated systems formed councils, defended themselves, and prepared for the Empire's inevitable retaliation. Yet, humanity did not seek to conquer. Its goal was clear: to end the Empire's ideology that treated leaders and life as property. Emma Ross and Paul Adams watched reports from every front. Fleets moved with precision, using intelligence from the 4 generals. Commander Lara West, General Tessa Ryder, Admiral Nina Solis, and Colonel Juno King coordinated closely with human officers. Together, they guided the coalition, blending strategy and morality. On the front lines, Captain Mike Hayes led a strike to disable the Empire's main command network. Enemy fleets approached, but humans and allies had prepared traps. Precision strikes targeted control centers, communications, and supply lines, leaving civilian populations unharmed. Imperial soldiers who resisted were captured rather than destroyed, ensuring the coalition maintained its moral high ground. In a distant system, Amy Brooks piloted a ship through enemy lines. She had participated in countless skirmishes, but the intensity of this final phase of the war was different. Every move had consequences. A miscalculation could lead to unnecessary loss of life. She reminded herself that humanity fought not for revenge, but for justice. The 4 generals personally oversaw critical operations. Lara West directed extraction missions for civilians trapped on Imperial worlds. Tessa Ryder analyzed enemy reinforcements, predicting movements and weaknesses. Nina Solis commanded fleet maneuvers that prevented Imperial ships from regrouping. Juno King trained local resistance fighters to defend their homes once the Empire's control collapsed. Back on Earth, Alex Brown and Nina Fox coordinated intelligence and logistics. They tracked Imperial movements, intercepted communications, and predicted counterattacks. Each victory, each liberation, reinforced the coalition's resolve. Humans were no longer observers. They were leaders in reshaping the galaxy. As campaigns progressed, the Empire's ideology began to unravel. Governors and commanders who had once followed orders unquestioningly started surrendering. Many abandoned their posts to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The Empire, which had relied on fear and control, now faced internal collapse. On a key Imperial world, a massive command hub fell without major conflict. Human-led forces occupied strategic points, disabling oppressive systems. The population, once terrified, emerged cautiously, witnessing a new kind of governance. Humans and allied leaders helped organize local councils, ensuring safety, stability, and fairness. Emma Ross addressed the coalition through holographic transmissions. "We are not here to destroy a species," she said. "We are here to end an ideology. Fear, oppression, and the idea that life can be owned are not invincible. Every liberated world proves this." The Empire attempted to regroup. Small fleets moved to retake lost systems, but their efforts were disjointed. Humans and allied forces used superior coordination, knowledge, and strategy. Battles were fought with precision. Infrastructure was preserved. Civilians were protected. The moral authority of the coalition became its greatest weapon. In the midst of the war, the four generals made a historic decision. They would lead a combined human-allied strike to the Empire's capital. Their goal was not annihilation, but to dismantle oppressive institutions. Every plan prioritized lives and governance over destruction. Captain Mike Hayes led the fleet to the Imperial capital. Amy Brooks navigated through heavily defended space. Scouts identified routes and weaknesses. Each step was calculated. The generals coordinated with resistance cells within the Empire, who provided critical intelligence. Together, they ensured the strike was precise. Inside the capital, humans and allied forces disabled control centers and communication hubs. Imperial leaders faced surrender or capture. No civilians were harmed. Soldiers were given the chance to defect or surrender safely. For the first time, the Empire felt real vulnerability. Its ideology, once assumed unshakable, was crumbling. The final negotiations were led by Emma Ross, Paul Adams, and the four generals. They framed the surrender not as defeat, but as opportunity. Former Imperial leaders could join the coalition under new ethical rules or retreat safely to distant neutral systems. The message was clear. Violence would not be rewarded, but morality would be respected. As the Empire's structures dissolved, liberated populations took responsibility for their own governance. New councils formed, blending human oversight with local leadership. The coalition helped train officials, set up systems, and ensure stability. For the first time in generations, citizens experienced freedom and justice. The four generals returned as leaders in the new Galactic Council. They advised on policies, ensured military restraint, and fostered alliances across species. Humanity had not only saved them, but had empowered them to lead again. Their combined experience and ethical guidance became a model for the galaxy. Emma Ross and Paul Adams reflected on the long war. The conflict had begun with an auction, a symbol of cruelty. It ended with cooperation, ethics, and justice. Human principles had reshaped an entire region of space. The last war was not about conquest or revenge. It was about the dignity of all sentient beings. Alex Brown and Nina Fox watched the final transmissions. "We changed everything," Alex said quietly. "We did more than fight," Nina replied. "We showed that morality can win." Throughout the galaxy, the legacy of the last war became clear. The Empire, as it had existed, was gone. Its ideology of fear and ownership was extinct. In its place arose a coalition guided by dignity, respect, and principle. Systems once oppressed flourished under new councils. Alliances across species formed. Humanity had sparked a change that no force could easily undo. The last war began with the auction of 4 woman generals. It ended with the extinction of an idea, not a species. The galaxy learned that courage, intelligence, and ethics were stronger than fear. Humanity had acted decisively, morally, and with restraint. And for the first time in centuries, the stars themselves seemed brighter, filled with hope for all free beings. The humans, the 4 generals, and their allies had won not by destroying, but by liberating. The galaxy would never forget that lesson. True strength lies in protecting life, respecting dignity, and standing for what is right. The last war was over, but its legacy would guide generations to come.